I am, as Bertrand mentioned, the developer advocate from OuterCurve. What that is not exactly clear right now because I just got on the job a couple weeks ago. So this is kind of the presentation I was more or less given to present, which I'm okay with. But I'm going to talk a little bit about what OuterCurve is, what we do, and kind of what and how we help build communities around our projects. So as it says, it's the what do free and open source foundations do, and it's enabling community growth. Obviously, what is a foundation? We provide legal structure, we provide business operations, we provide technical services. The history is pretty diverse. There is the Free Software Foundation in 1980s, the Apache Software Foundation that built around Apache. The Eclipse project evolved into the Eclipse Foundation, and the Linux Foundation growing out of the merger of the OSDL and the Free Standards Group. Regardless of what each foundation represents their constituencies and members, what they mainly do is intellectual property management. That is that's the business end of what these foundations do, and it's really the important service that they provide. And it's for a lot of developers, it's like, well, intellectual property, we kind of get it, but especially for really large businesses, this is the huge thing. They want to know that the intellectual property that they're using, they're putting into their products, they can safely use. That they're not going to be, there isn't a submarine patent, that if someone hasn't put something in there that they can't use, things like that. That's why these foundations really got started. These are some of the foundations. You have the Apache Foundation, Free Software Foundation, OuterCurve, Eclipse, and Linux Foundation. There are two types of foundations, and this is really more of a tax thing for this neutral nonprofit foundations. We have the 501c3s, which are the traditional nonprofits, where you can, if you donate money to them, they, you can write it off in your taxes. That's more the Free Software Foundation and the Apache Software Foundation. Both are that. We are a 501c6, which is a technical industry association for its members. There isn't a whole lot of difference between the two because we don't make a profit. It's more just for tax purposes, but there are differences between the two. Primarily that if someone were to donate money to our foundation, they couldn't write it off on their taxes. But I'm not a tax lawyer, so I don't know the details. And then you also have corporate projects that are not foundations. You have a lot of these up here. It's important to distinguish them from like .orgs, like you have fedora.org or things like that. They are not a foundation. They are corporate run, which is not necessarily bad. They serve a great purpose, but they're not neutral. And sometimes that's important for particular companies because companies, they don't necessarily want to help out a competitor. I mean, it's an understandable thing. So one of the advantages that we have as a neutral nonprofit is that it's not going to the benefit of a company in the end. Even if they're doing, like, I'm not saying Fedora is particularly bad. I mean, they do awesome work. It's just they are run by a company in the end, and sometimes other companies don't feel comfortable contributing in that case. As I mentioned, neutrality encourages contribution, and as that makes sense, clean IP encourages adoption. As we mentioned, that's primarily related to, as I said, companies want to know that the intellectual property is safe to use. And then foundations act as a community center of gravity, which is kind of a fancy way of saying kind of what we do, which I will go through a little bit. It's really it's trying to organize these communities that we have around these projects, trying to get people involved, trying to contribute, trying to get them to be involved in any way they can. So we'll go through them in reverse order. Foundation as a community center of gravity. We support an architecture of participation, which is a kind of funny business-y sounding word, which I can give you the definition. It is the processes, practices, and infrastructure a project needs to put in place to build the on-ramp for potential users and contributors to get involved, which is a fancy way of saying making it easy to join, really. I mean, get people involved. We want to make it as simple and straightforward as possible. We support and grow committers. support lines of communications, and provide technical services, forges, code signing, etc. OuterCurve is a little bit unique in that most of the other foundations provide some sort of forge. We don't do that for one main reason is it's very expensive to maintain. And really there are lots of great places to do it. I mean, you have Codeplex, you have GitHub, you have Google Code, Launchpad, SourceForge, things like this exist. This is not an area where there is nothing available for open source projects. There clearly are, so we don't provide the forges, but we do provide some other services that are technical. The neutrality encourages contribution. We consider this the inbound flow of the project in a way. This is about neutrality and ownership, and Henrik Ingo, he has statistics on foundations and project activities. And while obviously you can't currently click on that link, which makes it kind of useless, I can read you. He said he's spent a lot of time in the MySQL world, and he studied a number of sources and used the olo.net numbers to demonstrate that 9 of the 10 largest, most vibrant, free and open source communities are hubbed in a foundation. The 10th largest is owned by a corporation and is an order of magnitude smaller. He's a good engineer, so his methods and assumptions are published along with his data. He's not suggesting necessarily that the relationship is causative, but there's clearly a strong correlation between the two. Neutrality and ownership. Successful projects grow and evolve until commercial organizations want to participate. And it makes sense that if you look at the historic growth of these foundations, projects with a lot of activity grow to a point where commercial interests want to participate. And then when that happens, they need to have the certainty of the intellectual property being clear, making sure that's safe for them to get involved. And in the past, this is actually what's happened with all 3 of these foundations. IBM helped start the Apache Software Foundation when they wanted to use Apache with WebSphere. A collection of vendors wanted to mitigate the IP risk around Linux, and the OSDL was formed. And the Eclipse Foundation was a similar situation as Linux. And then in the outbound flow, we have the clean IP encourages adoption. And the legal structures are important. We have particularly the license and what effect that has on inbound contributions, and then actually, people using it in the end. What is the license? How can they use it? Who can get involved? That types of things. We have assignment and contribution licenses. I don't know how many people actually have signed a CLA with the OuterCurve. I'm sure a number of the board members have, and people that contribute do it. Mainly, this is one thing we handle is that when people are going to become committers or are going to contribute a significant amount of code, and what that particular amount is kind of debated by lawyers. Some people, I've been told that at Microsoft, their attitude is anything that's less than 10 lines of code, it can't really be copyrighted. Other people say it's 50 lines of code. It's kind of a wishy-washy area. It's not totally clear, but the big thing is we consider a significant size. We have people sign the CLA saying, this is my work, or I can legitimately use this work from it because there's a license that I can reuse it. There is, and say that I agree to that this work can be licensed under an agreement that the OuterCurve approves and the project approves. So this is provide that legal certainty that companies, especially very large ones, want to have. They desperately want to have because they really do not want to get sued. It has provenance tracking, which is kind of just an overly verbose way of just saying we need to know who contributed. I mean, primarily things like so we can go back into the say your Git log and say, okay, these are the people that contributed at this time. This is what they contributed. So theoretically, if we get to a point where we find out, hey, somebody contributed something they couldn't contribute, we know where to start looking. Those things. Liability and risk management. OuterCurve is, and this continues with the committer indemnification, is that OuterCurve is a little bit unique in that we indemnify our committers if they in good faith put in code that they believe they can use, or that that they feel is completely legitimate to put in there, and it happens that it violates some sort of patent. We would indemnify them. We would back them up in the court of law. Now, realistically, that probably would never happen because companies aren't suing individual contributors because really they don't have any money. They want to sue very large companies, but this is helpful in that we do back them up very specifically. Other organizations have said that they haven't publicly said it, but if you go ask them behind the scenes, they'll be like, yeah, we'll probably do it, but we're just out there saying we indemnify our committers. We want them to get involved. We don't want them to have to worry about legal consequences or anything like that. We want them to be involved and contribute as they can. This is the OuterCurve Mission, which is apparently originally, because one of our founding sponsor was Microsoft, this was the fancy term they came up with for our mission: enabled the exchange of code and understanding among software companies and open source communities, which is, it's been through marketing speak, obviously. It's actually, though, a relatively good mission, because really one of the problems that exist is that there are a lot of companies that want to use open source, they're interested in open source, but they don't really feel comfortable. And we're trying to help with this, get them over the edge. How can we help them, to get contributing? How can we help them, making more of their projects that they have open source and things along those lines. And as we said, it's neutral, so we have that advantage that companies feel comfortable going to us and working with us because we're not in favor of their competitors. We're not in favor of what they do, of what their competitors do. We're not trying to help their competitors. We're just trying to help open source succeed, which is, that's what I cared about. This is why I took this job. I care about open source. I care about it succeeding. Also, multi-source companies. I did not know what this meant. I don't know how many people actually know what it means because as I said, I was given these slides. So it was clarified that apparently a lot of companies, especially in the mobile space, they're taking code from a bunch of different places. There are libraries that they're using from a bunch of different places. Some of them are closed source, some of them are open source, some of them are somewhere in the middle, effectively between the two. It's a mix of different places, and so these companies, again, need to understand how to get involved, what they can do, what they can't do, and things along those lines. While many foundations provide a liability firewall and demonstration of neutrality, they're tied to a license, a particular technology base, or development process. That's what we're actually kind of unique. As it mentions down there, we remain agnostic on license, technology, platform, and development process. We do not decide what license you should use as long as it's an open source, an OSI license. We don't care about your particular technology, which a lot of the foundations are involved in. We don't care about your development process. The Apache Foundation, which, they do great work. Don't get me wrong. I think they do amazing work. They are very clearly, they have a base that's based on meritocracy, which is perfectly fine. We don't decide that that's how you have to structure your project. You can structure your project that way, but if you want to have a benevolent dictator for life, or Bertrand as the benevolent dictator, not for life.
Yeah, and that's very important.
It's very clear.
I don't want to be that for life.
Oh, I understand. That's perfectly fine too. It's just the it's whatever process works for your community. The OuterCurve project roles, and these are important, is that we have users, which are obviously the people that use your software. You have contributors, and we differentiate that from committers, because contributors are people that they provide a bug report, they provide documentation, they provide test cases, they provide, in some cases, code, but they're not actually committing to the actual repository. They don't have commit rights. But it's important. All that stuff is important. This is what builds communities. This is what builds projects. You need all of that stuff. And I know, as a open source advocate and person who has worked in open source, that documentation stuff and those test cases are something that no one wants to do. So when someone does that, that is awesome. Those are really important, and we make clear that those people are very valuable members of the community. You have committers, are the people who actually have commit rights to the repository, and you have project leaders. And obviously, as we mentioned before, the project leaders can be someone who's elected. It can be the benevolent dictator for life model, like they have in Linux, where it's just somebody who is running the project, and just because of what they've done and they started it, they are going to run it. We don't care. We just want it to be open and clear to people how this works. And for some legal reasons, and we're still trying to clarify what these reasons are because we're not totally sure what they are, but we know that we do need to know who the project leader is, because we need to go to them at times and say, okay, we're going to provide these services. We need to know who we're going to listen to when someone comes to us and says, hey, we need this service. We need to know, hey, it's not one of the users coming to us. It's actually the project leader or someone who's been designated to do so. And the role of it is, of OuterCurve's goal is really to increase the project contribution flow. And if there's one line in this slide that's important, it's contributions are the lifeblood of any active free and open source software project. This is the most important thing, is that when you have a project that does not have contributors, that does not have contributions, you don't have an active project. That is the most important thing, and this community has done an amazing job. So honestly, I just want to thank you guys. You guys have done awesome. This is amazing. So you guys get this. Not all of our projects get this. Some of them have issues, and they're all very good projects, but some of them are just not as active. They don't have as many contributors. So this is important. We want to help project gain users that become contributors, that become committers. That's kind of this architecture of participation. It's getting people from the start of being a user to saying, hey, I can contribute and provide a bug report, and then realize, hey, if I add on in some way, this fulfills some purpose I need, and then contributing back that code, and then committing. We want to have that level, so people are going from this lower level, and I shouldn't really say lower, but this initial level up to being a committer. And what do we do? This is actually in flux right now, because this is kind of what my job is to figure out right now. What do projects need? What can we do? We provide PR and marketing communications. We provide contest and event support. I'm not sure if did the Orchard one go through OuterCurve, or was that a Microsoft contest when they were contributing modules? That was, yeah. Well, didn't you guys have a contest for a particular module? Yeah, the module contest. Was that OuterCurve, or was that a Microsoft handled thing? Microsoft. Okay. Most of our projects, actually, we found that a number, like I've said, Microsoft is one of our main sponsors still. We have others, including AOL, EMC, and we're working with some additional ones to try to bring them on as sponsors. A lot of the contest, especially at Microsoft, is a really big pain because it has to go through a lot of legal hurdles to get the contest explicitly. You have to say it has to be done at this date and it has to be exactly this way. And if you have any reason to move away from that, it is going to involve a lot of legal people. And so the OuterCurve has a little bit more flexibility. We're not as worried about liability in the same way that a company that brings in $6 billion a quarter is. It's more of a we have a little bit more flexibility in trying to simplify that for projects. So we do help with that. We have mentoring, and I should mention we have a lot of mentors that are from a lot of open source communities. We have Ross Gardler from the Apache Software Foundation, Leslie Hawthorne, who worked at the Open Source Lab at Oregon State, and she organized the Google Summer of Code originally. John Mark Walker, who ran the communities at Splunk, Hyperic, and VA Software, and Dave Neary from the GNOME community. We also have people who, I believe Scott Hanselman is currently a mentor right now. We have some others. It's a very broad group. It's not like this is only Microsoft-centric people. We have a very broad range of people who are interested in mentoring projects, helping them out, and whatnot. We provide code signing. This is something we're just starting, although we've actually provided it for a couple of years, but we've kind of done it on an ad hoc basis. Projects want to have their binaries signed to make sure that you're actually getting the legitimate code from OuterCurve. So I'm actually working on this in the next few weeks and trying to set up a web service and a command line tool or something that can be part of a build process so that the project leader, when they build, it can get sent to the web service, get signed, and they get it back, the final result. So it's pretty much automatic. They don't have to do a lot of work because there are a lot of reasons why we don't want to give out a code signing certificate, because once we give it out, we can't really get it back. So, and once it's out there, it's pretty much anything that person signs we're backing up as OuterCurve. So obviously there are concerns that, say, a project leader were to leave or whatnot, we don't want to deal with that. So what we're trying to do is come up with a service for project leaders to be able to sign in and just, type a command line tool and have it done. We do contributing and contribution agreements, which is the big thing, and proposing new projects. We're looking for new projects, and this could be something that even in Orchard is possible. I mean, depending on if a module gets big enough that it is has a community of its own, almost in a way. You could feasibly become a project. We're kind of at that area, like I mentioned before, is we want it to be where we take projects when they start, but really what we need is projects that have a few users, and big thing is that there are companies that want to be involved, because that's really important. We found that when projects start getting support from corporations, start getting support from organizations, that they really, it's when they start to explode. And there are a lot of projects that are just at that level that we're trying to look for and to help them get over that edge, so that the really big guys, the really big corporations are not going to be afraid to be involved, because we provide some legal certainty. We're also trying to provide some products, I guess is the best way to describe it, and I can't really talk about it because we don't have it for sure yet, but things for committers to be able to use to make it easier to develop code. I guess that's the best way I can describe it. But we're trying to make it available so that our committers have the ability to work on projects and not have the tools they need to get their job done. So I guess that's the best way to describe it. That's pretty much that slide. And then this is really, what do you need from OuterCurve? That's kind of what I'm here for. Is, like I said, this is my first month. I'm still trying to figure this out. They're trying to figure this out because it's a new position, and we really need to know, what do communities need? Because that's like the most important thing, because we want these projects to succeed. These are important to us. This is what we do. A successful project makes, in a very selfish way, makes OuterCurve look good, but also we care about open source. So we want projects to be successful. So, over the next day, if you say, hey, I think it would help, especially for Orchard, or even this module I'm working on, that we're getting a lot of contributors, what can you do to help us? We can help. The worst thing that we can say is, no, we can't do that. But at least you've asked, at least we have some idea. And that's really important, because, there may be things that we've never thought of that someone says, hey, this is a great idea and it would really help, and we can help with that. We just don't know them. So it really depends on the project, and it really depends on coming from the contributors and the committers and the users to explain what is it that helps you, what makes this simpler, what makes it easier for us to get involved. So that is the end of my presentation, and if you have questions, and since you obviously don't have this presentation, you cannot click those links, but I will obviously be here over the rest of the day, and I'm sure I'll be for the hackathon.
We're not going to let you off that easy.
Okay, awesome.
We're going to see if anybody has a question now.
Please do.
When we started our child, it was a Microsoft project. So it was easy for us to satisfy the requirements from the foundation.
Okay.
For a new project. I could say more about that, but I won't. Did this change? Because the conditions at the time were, I would say, difficult to reach for a beginning project. So how difficult is it today for a project to get into the foundation?
I know that's something that they're working on. One of the things that we've been talking about is creating kind of like an incubator space. So there would be a level of I know it was relatively difficult for projects to get started. We're trying to change that, and that's something I really care about. Is I want as many projects as possible that we can help. So they're working on an incubator space. I don't know where that is right now exactly. Is it for sure going to happen? And there would be a lesser requirements for that. So that's really the best I can say with that. I don't know the details.
Yeah,
totally.
thanks for that answer. It's very important because one thing you could say is that if a project qualifies for OuterCurve today, maybe it doesn't need OuterCurve that much.
Yes, I agree with you.
It does because of legal reasons and so on, but for the more practical day-to-day project management issues, it can. So
yeah, believe me, that's something I care a lot about because that's important. And I'm going to be, I come from, we have 3 employees. I'm the third one. The other ones have a lot of experience in more of a, the big software space. They have experience either at Microsoft or involved in large open source organizations. And I don't come necessarily from that. I'm coming more from the developer side. I'm a software developer at heart. I'm involved in open source projects. So I understand how important that is.
Anybody else have a question?
It's okay.
Well, I certainly appreciate Bertrand and others answering my stupid questions. I recognize that effective support happens in layers. And is there anything that OuterCurve can do to create effective layers for getting new people into the community that are asking the same questions over and over, and perhaps taxing the more senior members of the group?
One of the things we're considering working on is something like a best practices. And we're trying to learn from the projects themselves that we have and other projects out there. How do other projects handle this when they start to get larger? And that's something we're actually going to look at and trying to figure out what is the best mechanism for doing this. And obviously, it depends on the particular project. Some projects are, they're not going to want that for whatever reason. The people that are the committers are going to actually want to answer those questions and have time to. In other cases, it won't be that case because obviously Orchard has gotten large enough that that's not feasible. So it's something we're going to look at. I personally don't know enough about it to say, hey, we can do A, B, and C, but it is something we're going to actually research, and that's one of my jobs going forward is to try to figure out these best practices for projects, to try to figure out how to go forward and be successful. So.
Anybody else have a question? What about legal ramifications outside of the United States? This isn't actually outside the United States, but I do have an example that's kind of related to that. We can provide some legal services. In fact, we do. We had a project, .NET OpenAuth, that they create encryption. They implement encryption algorithms as part of their project, and they wanted to understand what are the rules about exporting encryption. So we have lawyers that are involved in open source or involved in software that understand these issues, and we can go to them and say, hey, how does this work? So I don't know how much we do outside of the U.S., but if it's an issue, it's something we will certainly get involved with. So if it's something of a specific case, please tell us, and some of it we're gonna learn from foundations like the Free Software Foundation, which has 25 years of experience. They have experience dealing with that. Ironically, Creative Commons has experience dealing with that. So we're gonna learn from them, but also we have the funding and some to do those type of things. Great, thank you. Anybody else? Perfect. All right. Oh, please.
I understand projects like Orchard and other ones, it's very critical to have support from the foundation. And I also realize that you guys have limited resources and there's only so many projects you can support too. In terms of that, is there a criteria of when do you stop supporting a project? Are there certain criteria you look at?
That's actually something that's come up very, very recently. We're working on that one because there are a couple projects we know that they've either outlived their usefulness or they're just,
I don't want to name names, but there are projects that made sense 3 years ago, that were a really good idea 3 years ago, but the people, the project leads are pretty much like, people have abandoned this technology. We're not going to support it, and I don't think there's really a need to support it. Or so much not support it, but say, we don't need to contribute anymore. It's done effectively. People aren't using it. So that's actually, we had come up with that idea of, I don't remember how like an archive, basically, of projects. We're saying, we'll continue working with them, but just so people know, this isn't really being developed on anymore. And we do have a few projects, because we have 26 projects, and some of them are very active, some of them are not. So that we're working on the exact mechanism on how to do that, and how we want to phrase it, and how we want to structure it, so people understand that, hey, you can use this code, and if it benefits you, obviously it's an open source project. If you want to decide you want to fork it and build the world with it, awesome. But the actual project leaders have kind of decided, and the community has decided, this is not something that's going to be actively developed anymore. So yes, we are working on that.
Terrific. Thank you so much for coming out
No
to
problem.
share this with us this morning. Appreciate it very much. On the continuing topic of community, I want to introduce Arra Derderian, who is here from Boston. And he's going to tell us a little bit about why he started the Boston community and what he's done to foster it.
Hey everyone, I'm Arra Derderian, and I was probably the last one to go to bed last night, so I'm a little tired. Okay. As I said, I'm from Boston. I run a company called Cloud Construct. We're a .NET shop. We do Orchard sites, MVC sites, Windows Azure projects. We got involved with Orchard because we wanted a CMS that could run on Azure. And I'm going to talk about the user group here, which I started to kind of foster the community around Orchard. When I first started, all there really was the forums, the documentation, stuff like that, and that was great. But since I was adopting this technology for my company, I wanted support locally for it, and more resources. So I wanted to build that up locally. Being someone who used user groups a lot, I thought it was a great thing. Like Windows Azure, that's where I learned about Orchard, and that's the user group that I started going to first. Basically, this is our website. We have about 35 members right now in Boston. I think we're the only one on meetup.com right now for Orchard, because that was the first thing I did, is see if there was a local Orchard group. Let's see if that's still the case. Yeah, so the way we run it is basically we use Meetup for scheduling and having people register for all the meetings, posting various pictures from the meetings, questions, things like that. And then we have our website that we use to kind of build and teach everyone. So each month we have a meeting and we'll discuss a new feature of Orchard, or how to migrate from a previous version, new functionality, things like that. And we'll use this site to do that. So like last month we did deploying to Windows Azure. So we deployed this site there, and it was great. So I definitely recommend following that model. Let's see if there's any more. I really want to see if anyone started one. So starting your own meetup group in your area is definitely something to think about. It will, grow the community, which is great. We are trying to do a module next month to give back to the community. Oh, did it disconnect? Oh. I think I might. Or maybe Meetups just having issues. Let's see here. So I'm pretty sure we're the only one on there right now, but all right, I don't know why that's not working. If you go to our site, we have all the slides from all our past meetings. So if you're thinking of doing something like this, definitely download them and you can use them as you give talks. And that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. Anyone have any questions about maybe starting a user group in their area?
I have a question.
Sure.
Sorry. How do you make this up? I mean, don't you afraid to be by yourself for the first meetup?
Yeah, so that's a good question. The first meetup, we had our best attendance because I think everyone was just like, wow, what is this? I want to know about it.
And then no more.
And
Okay.
then it kind of
Okay, that's
tapered
worse.
off. If it's sunny or nice outside, I get worried if people show up. But we have 35 on the meetup group, and we usually get like 6 to 7 each month, which is great. And then there's always a few new people, so you kind of got to juggle teaching people the new stuff and, keeping the other people interested in new things.
So for the conference, what we did, we paid them, we feed them,
Right. Yeah. So that's another good point. Microsoft gives us space, which is the main reason we can do it. The New England Research and Design Center in Cambridge, Mass. I don't know if anyone's ever made it out there, but it's really nice space. They give us free space, and then OuterCurve has donated pizza. So definitely reach out to those guys. And I think,
buy pizza for
I mean, if everyone knows the pizza is how you lure the people in, so it's like they get really disappointed when you don't have pizza. So don't not have it. Yeah, bring pizza.
We're gonna have a pizza budget. They're just gonna replace me with pizza at some point.
Yeah, so that definitely brings people in, and I think people are just really interested in it, and I'm hoping to really start pushing it now. After coming here, I got a lot of great content to bring back, so that's kind of what I told everyone in the group. I'll be back from Harvest with some great content. Definitely going to grab Sipka's code there. That was a great presentation, so that'll be great to show everyone in Boston. And I think, as you guys said, it's a good way to grow the community locally and take some of the burden off these guys a little. Any other questions?
Any questions in the audience, David?
I'm just curious, how do you find speakers, for, no, and kind of a little off that, it might be pretty cool if on the Orchard project, main Orchard side, if they had, I don't know, somebody has to do it, right? But maybe a list of people who are willing to speak, or, list of user groups or something, to help out community. But I'm just curious how you're able to find people to speak.
Yeah, so for the first 6, it was all me doing the talks. I have a friend who works with me. She did the theming talk. I had to twist her arm on it, but she did it. Trying to get remote people. I've asked a couple times, and Sebastian was great for giving me kind of a Skype session on Windows Azure, and then I just did that presentation for my group. So that was great. That's a great idea though. If people would like to present on a topic, I'd really appreciate that, and then we can give back to each other's groups depending on different people's strengths. I've got requests to record it as well, and maybe do it in a Google Hangout or something like that.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that one of the things might be that you had asked about how to structure this so that you can get questions answered is more the issue. Maybe it's local user groups. That may be a way to start answering these questions and kind of structure it. I think we're going to figure this out as we go, but I mean that just came to mind that might be a way to handle this. I don't know.
Yeah.
Quick question. What is the time constraint on your part? How much time do you have to spend a month to maintain the group?
There's definitely so the initial startup was getting the website up and running, not too bad. It's a little bit to secure the space each month at the Microsoft location, but I'd say 4 or 5 hours building that presentation each month and thinking of a good topic and just kind of social networking, Twitter, stuff like that, getting people excited about stuff. So I think each month it might be a 7 or 8 hour commitment, but the goal is as I get more people to kind of, push that out on to different people. So can you take care of this part, get more people speaking? I think that'll be good.
We have a kind of quasi-Orchard user group here in Los Angeles, the Code Club associated with the .NET community. The idea was initiated by Philip, who was here yesterday, and the idea was to have a book club type of format except around code, where what we do is we look at the innards of complex, well-architected software, and for some reason he's decided to start with Orchard. So I guess I don't so much have a question as just a plug for the LA Code Club. We usually meet 2 Mondays of the month at Blank Spaces on Wilshire, who donates the space. But I guess my question would be, would you be interested in enabling remote participation in your meetings?
Yeah, totally. You're like the third person this week to mention it, so I think it's definitely something we should do. The format of like a hackathon is something we're gonna do next month, which will be great because it's a smaller group now, so you can kind of do those intimate sessions, which will be great. When I first started, I didn't, like the first kickoff meeting, I had just started with Orchard. So, and when I started with Orchard, I hadn't even done an MVC project. I was a web forms guy. So it was like, I was like, what is this? I took like the biggest technical jump there, but I found that going to other user groups helped me learn a lot easier. So I was like, let me start my own and bring people in and we can kind of figure out what's going on together. So it's been good ever since then. And as I said, I have a bunch of slides up on there and I'll look at enabling some remote access. But yeah, I think anyone looking to start a community in the area would be a great idea.
Thank you. I want to do one thing. We're gonna move forward because we want to try to get Pete back in as well today. Important. We're going to do something really quick. Remember yesterday I did a hands up thing? Today we're going to do a get up thing. So if you are from the Midwest, please stand up. And turn around and look around the room. That's your meetup. Okay? That's your connection. That's already a group there that you guys can start forming and work with the other groups to get information, how to do it, OuterCurve. Thank you, Midwest. Anybody from the Northeast? All right. It's a start, okay? Anybody from the Southeast, please stand up. No, there you go. All right, there's one more yesterday. Anybody from the Southwest? Stand up, Southwest. All right.
You got a good group.
I'm gonna keep standing up, and then if anybody from California, sit down. So from those who might be from Texas, I don't want to. We're going to find some more Texans, okay? The Tola area. I did Midwest, I did Northeast, I did Southeast, I did Southwest, Northwest. All right, that's pretty terrific.
And you forgot the empty seats, they are all drunk and sleeping.
Yes, the empty seats. Yeah. And on a serious note, so you guys have seen each other, and I think that's great, and you've guys been mixing. So there's a definite opportunity to start your own community groups. And I know the other community groups will support you in that. And I know that we will do that the same, and as well as be available to either help you prepare and or even come in via video conferencing to help you do your group meetups.
Just a note, meetup.com is not free. That's the only one thing. But
What's the fee?
I think it's like $80 a year. But it's definitely worth it because
is OuterCurve willing to sponsor the $80 a year?
I'm not going to say that for sure.
Will you take that back with you?
We can talk about it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, if you're willing to do pizza, $80 a year is a less than a pizza party. Okay.
We can look at it. Yeah.
All right. Terrific. Oh, sorry. All right. Camille has raised her hands twice. She really wants to ask a question.
With new technologies, how do you separate recruiters from developers in your meetups?
Yeah. Like recruiters coming to poach people? I've actually had recruiters that will sponsor the meetups and stuff like that because they want to meet, smart individuals and recruit. So I don't think I've had any recruiters show up for Orchard, but I did get a recruiting call once, like, we're looking for someone who knows Orchard CMS, job opening. But yeah, I haven't had that issue, I guess.
As long as they don't disrupt the meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not sure I understand what the concern is. You're afraid of getting hired?
And we had more recruiters than developers. And we've been doing FGC for the last 3-4 years, and we want developers. So how do you separate that?
So maybe what you do is you put it on your meetup that this is for developers, run by developers, and if recruiters are interested in supporting the group, they should sponsor it. And maybe what they do is you give every recruiter the ability to sponsor it every week, every month, whatever the cadence is that you do that. So everyone has an opportunity as a recruiter to be part of that ecosystem and at the same time support you. Great. So we're gonna move on at this point. Thank you very much.
Thanks, guys.
What? I know. Thank you very much, guys. C'est bon. Même pas.